how often are we carrying weight and we're shooting all over ourselves? You do what you do when you do it because you did it. The only thing you can affect is your next choice. The past already happened. There's nothing you can do to change it. It's not even real anymore. And guess what? We only remember 1% of our memories. And 1% of that 1% we remember accurate. Cut the cables. The cables just hold you back. Cut them back. And in the future, sometimes we do the same thing where we worry about what we're going to do, what's going to happen. That's running in mud. Cut the freaking cables and get out of the mud.
You're a man living in the modern world in a time when men and manhood are not what they once were. You live life on your own terms. You're self-sufficient. You think for yourself and you march to the beat of your own drum. When life knocks you down, you get back up because in your gut, you know that's what men do. You're a badass and a warrior. And on the days when you forget, we are here to remind you who you really are.
Might help us out, over.
Yeah, I'll help you out. Air 2-1, understand, cleared, shoot fire 30 millimeter on that azimuth within 2 kilometers of the tower.
Minimal, over.
Rotor RPM high.
You alright? I'm shot,
Rotor
I'm shot.
RPM low.
Okay? I'm shot.
Rotor RPM
Shot in the
low.
leg. Hey,
Rotor
Jesus Christ.
RPM low.
Shot in the leg, I'm headed in.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I'm in box.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
140, Air 2-1. Okay?
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay, hey, pressure on your blood. Yeah, Aero 2-3, front seater just took a round in the leg. We're heading to
I'm going to try.
Roger, copy, Aero 2-3, front seater, round of the leg. You're moving to escort him to Bastion for...
Oh, Jesus, my leg is so fucked up, dude.
All right, dude, put pressure on it.
I can't, I don't know where it went in.
And keep in mind, that was the northernmost Apache. If that helps lock in that position.
Son of a bitch.
All right, man, just calm down.
Okay, Roger,
I know.
copy,
Calm down.
northernmost...
My leg is so swollen right now.
Roger.
About okay around it. Hey, Chris, my front seater shot. I'm headed in. I'm in Bucks on. Copy, you're in Bucks now. I'm in Bucks, and my front seater is wounded. Yeah, roger that. Get your wing to cover down on this flipper flight. We'll join you back to Bastion. Big wings on me right now, aren't they? We're on you. Okay, we've got the fight. Go for it. Get out. Yeah, we're headed out. Dude, get the... You got how's your blood?
I don't know.
Stay up
I can't see anything, dude.
Trouble for PLS? No, we'll head out. Keep your pressure. Keep your pressure.
Trying. I don't know where it went in.
All right. Did it has an exit wound?
I don't know. All I know is my leg is swollen.
All right.
There's blood everywhere.
All right. Hey, Chris, have them relay the back. Have medics available over there.
Oh, Jesus Christ, dude, this sucks.
All right, man, just calm down.
I'm good.
Are you dizzy?
A little bit.
Okay. You need to put pressure on the blood.
Roger.
If you got an exit...
I'm trying, dude.
You got a...
I don't know where it went in.
Okay, well, you try and fill down your legs, see if you can find the hole.
1-495, 1-440, go ahead.
See if you can find the hole.
Can't move, dude.
You're okay. You're okay. See if you can find the hole.
Talking, stay up from that, over.
Trying to go... Okay, you're all right. We have a single engine. And just be advised, guys, we have single engine right now. Single engine, I'm in the Bucks. I'm at...
Thunder 20, Thunder 20, 1-395.
He's okay?
1-395, 1-0. Roger, do you have smoke, over?
Okay, hang in there, Brian. Let us know you
Roger that.
Chinook support because they're on their last turn.
Roger, I need immediate smoke, vicinity, Papa Romeo 669er, 829er. I'll copy you, over.
Good idea. Right, just don't even mess with the digital stuff. Give us an 8-digit grid.
Immediate smoke, 669, 829.
Yeah,
Roger. 5 minutes, over.
Can you find the hole, buddy?
No, dude.
All right.
I'm afraid to move my leg because my leg is broken.
Okay. Well,
above the knee.
All right, buddy. Hang tight. You're all right. We need find that. You need to try and find where the blood's coming from, where you're hit.
I think my leg is gone. Like, it's blown off, dude.
Well, folks, that, I'll let Brian explain what that was. Take it away, Brian.
So for those of you guys that didn't figure out how that was situated, that was my co-pilot that took the round to the leg. In the Apache, you are set co-pilot in front and pilot in command in the back. So I could really see, so you know, all I could see was the back of his head. We had to communicate through the intercom system, but there was no way for me to really know what was going on with him visually. I had to kind of figure it out. But when you listen to the audio, it's kind of a little bit misleading because he wasn't the primary problem. There were actually two problems that were more significant that happened at the same time as him getting shot. But before I get into that, this story happens towards the end of the book that I wrote. It's called Cleared Hot. This is one of the stories so my deployment was roughly 23 months long, and there were significant amounts of engagements with Taliban and other insurgent forces during that time period. So at the point that this happened, I'd had a lot of experience in those realms. But what I'd like to share with you before I go into this is the very first time I engaged with the enemy. The very first time that something like this happened, and I didn't have the experience to lean on. When I first deployed to Afghanistan, I was a co-pilot myself. I actually got upgraded while we were deployed. And I don't think I got upgraded because of any skill set or ability. I got upgraded because we needed another AC, and I was next in the pipeline. They said, "Okay, needs the Army. Here you go." Right? But as I got to Afghanistan, I was anxious to get in the fight. And I think most military members, when they raise their hand and say, "Hey, I want to do this," the very nature of raising your hand to say that, you want to be involved. You don't want to be on the periphery. You want to be in the middle. And that was the desire that I had. Yet war is hours and hours of boredom with minutes of sheer intensity that you never know when they're going to happen. And so as an Apache pilot, those of you that don't know the Apache, it's the gunship. It's the one that's got all the missiles, the rockets, and the 30 millimeter cannon. So we're the ones that go and kick the hornet's nest and try to swat the hornets. But we got to find the hornet's nest to begin with. And that's the thing that drives us. Hey, we're going to go do this, and we're going to support the ground troops. That's what we do. We support the ground troops or some sort of strategic mission or tactical advantage. So we were being called on what in effect is a 911 call, a QRF, quick reaction force. So when ground troops would get in contact, they'd call and say, "Hey, we need support. We're pinned down," that kind of thing. We'd launch. A lot of times, Taliban's smart. They know when we're coming. They got a network. They tell the people, and then they just kind of die down before we get there because it's not good business for them not to. And so I called that tactical blue balls because as we would get all ramped up and charge in, ready to go, and then they'd be die down there, and you have to meet certain criteria in order to engage anyway. And so we couldn't meet that criteria, and then we get to go back home, and you know what I mean with tactical blue balls. So that happened over and over and over again. Finally, we launched on this mission, and unbeknownst to me, this was going to be my first engagement, and it was legit. And so we rolled, and my backseater, his name's Doug Early. He's a CW4, and I'm a young lieutenant in the front seat. I'm green. I'm hungry. He's been around. He's had some engagements. He's been in combat. He knows what he's doing, I think, right? That's what I think. I'm leaning on him. I'm trying my best to be a sponge, but I'm hungry. And as we come into a very, very hostile part of where we fly, it's called the Corngull, really nasty place. Roll around the corner and check in with the ground troops. It's called Titan 1-1. Titan 1-1, we get him on the radio. And as soon as he keys the mic, we know he's in a bad situation because I can hear all the gunfire in the background. He's like, "Our call sign, Iron 1-6, Iron 1-6, Iron 1-6." And you can just hear, and it's both incoming and outgoing. You can hear it. You can hear he's out of breath. We're pinned down. They were on the side of a cliff on a road. They had been ambushed. IED blew up, so they can't go forward. IED blew behind them. They can't go backwards. And they're in a kill box, right? So there's guys hammering them from all up on the left side and up on the right side. And in between them, this is the cliff. There's this big ravine, and then there's another cliff on the other side. Well, What we're trying to do is figure out where these guys are. And in the daytime, it's kind of hard to see them. You don't see muzzle flash too well in the daytime, especially when you're a new guy. You don't know what to look for. Right. So I'm like looking and trying to figure it out. I want to help these guys out. I can hear it. And I'm talking to them. I'm like, where are you taking fire? We don't know. Wait, it's just effective. You know, they can feel it coming in, but they don't know exactly where it's coming from. And so Doug just starts being aggressive. We got two ships. One guy goes high. It's too steep for both of us to be circling in the same airspace. So he throws one guy high and says, cover us. We're going to go in and we're going to do bait, right? We're going to go down there and we're going to make ourselves such a juicy target that these guys can't resist it. And we're going to figure out where they're located. So he goes down. I'm like, I'm in. Let's do it. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just ready to go. So he comes down and he starts flying and he's getting down like 20, 15 feet over the deck. And then he starts slowing down. And I'm like, man, we really are a juicy target. We really are very vulnerable here. Very vulnerable here. And tactically speaking, it's kind of retarded, to be honest. But hubris gets in there sometimes. Sometimes you think you can't be hit. Sometimes you think that you got all of that. And as we were coming, and we were about 15, 20 feet, and just as we came out over the cliff, so where my 15 to 20 feet now turned to about 200 feet, we got rocked. The whole aircraft just picked up, lurched forward, and we were falling down into that cliff, into that ravine. And I was devastated. First fight, we come in, we're hit, we lose. That's what's going through my head in split seconds. I'm like, I can see the rock. I can see the rock in the bottom of the valley that we are going to die on. We are falling directly for it. We're not flying. The aircraft is out of control, just falling straight down. I'm like, we're done. We're done. But Doug had experience. He didn't think we were done. He kept flying the helicopter, trying his best. What had happened is an RPG blew right below us, airburst, made the air unflyable. You can't bite it. It was just bad, dirty air. So the helicopter actually flew, launched us up, and we fell down. But as soon as we got into clean air and our rotor got back to where it needed to be, Doug started flying out, pulled us out. We started to fly again. We get a second chance, right? But Doug was present. Doug was present. Doug didn't give up. Doug did not say, we're done. I did. I was like, oh shit, I don't know what we're done. I don't know what to do. I do not know what to do. We are falling right to that rock, and that's where we're going. I'm not on the controls. I'm running the gun. All right? Doug didn't. Doug stayed into it all the way. And how often in our life do we feel like we're done? We're this close. It's over. It's over. We just experienced that just a minute ago. It's over. I'm out. Right? It's over. I'm out. Doug wasn't done. He's like, it's not done until we're done. Right? And he continued to fly. He pulled us back out. And we went right back and he tried to figure out. But like an idiot, we didn't learn from our mistake. We went right back and started doing the exact same thing. And in this line of business, you don't get too many second chances, right? So you're trying to play around with a second chance and hoping you're going to get a third. It's not likely. So as we're doing it, sure as shit, we got rocked again. This time rocks hit the canopy. It's like you're behind a dump truck on a freeway. And just hell, we were falling again. This time I thought maybe they did hit us. It didn't just blow it. What they actually did is hit the cliffside right next to us. And rocks came flying and still did the air with fun. But now I know, hey, we aren't done. We're falling. I'm actually falling with him on the controls and starting to feel it back through. And as we pull back out, now I'm like, okay, enough of this. I was like, Doug, and then I was an air mission commander. He was the pilot in command, but the air mission commander is the officer on scene that's in charge of the battle. I'm like, Doug, we're taking fire from the same spot. There's no way they could hit that cliff from the places that we're looking. They have to be across the valley and at a trajectory that RPG can make sense. We got to be calm. We got to be strategic. We got to go back and engage that area. And that's exactly what we did. We found it. They shot another RPG at us and they got an RPG mustache. Right, that's what it's just like a cloud that comes when you shoot. I saw that mustache and we returned fire. And we took out the enemy. We took out the enemy there. We started seeing muzzle flash. Started taking out the enemy. It was the first time somebody actively tried to kill me. They almost did. It was the first time I actually did kill people because I had to. Because they were actually they were going to kill us, and they were trying to kill Titan 1-1's team. Whole time Titan 1-1 is on there. All of a sudden we start engaging. We start winning. We start turning the battle. We start turning the battle in our favor. Turning the battle in favor of Titan 1-1. Titan 1-1 you could hear his voice elevate to where he started to feel like we're not done either. He did his rock. He saw his rock, and we came and took that rock away from him, right? And I could see that. And once we finally got it all settled down and everything, and as we left, he was on the radio. He's like, "Thank Iron 16, thank you so much." And as we rolled back, I landed. That was surreal for me. That was my first engagement. My first engagement was legit. My first engagement was an experience. I had lots of other guys that had first engagements. They weren't like that, right? That was intense. But 2 weeks later, I'm sitting in the chow hall as Lieutenant Slade, eating minding my own business, and somebody stomps into the chow hall and says, "Lieutenant Slade!" I'm like, "Oh crap, what'd I do this time?" You know, somebody's not upset. Somebody's not happy about something. And I did, you guys read my book, I pushed the boundaries a little bit here and there because they needed to be pushed sometimes. Sometimes we need to push a little bit. And in my opinion. And said, "I'm right here." And he came over, and it was a captain. So he outranked me by 1 rank. I stood up, "Yes, sir." He said, "Are you Iron 16?" I said, "Well, I'm part of 4 guys that were." He's like, "Are you Iron 16 flight crew of the Titan 11 flight? Titan 11 in the Cornwall about 2 weeks ago." I said, "Yeah, that was me and my team. Absolutely." And just for those who know, 16 is a platoon guy. He's the second in command in a company. 06 is the commander. And he goes, "I am Titan 06. I was sitting right next to Titan 11. You guys saved our asses. And I want you to know what that means to me." And he put a coin in his hand and he gave me his coin. It wasn't a flashy coin. It wasn't a big coin. It wasn't a sexy coin. I got lots of coins, but that was one of my favorite coins. My first engagement. You don't always get to close that feedback loop, but he did. You don't always know what you do when you do it, what the ripple effects are. But you know that if you're coming from that place of looking out for your brother, looking out for those that go shoulder to shoulder with you, that those kind of results are happening. I got blessed enough to get that feedback loop closed in that situation. Now, fast forward about 23 months, and what you heard was my co-pilot screaming. I had been in a lot of fights since then. A lot of them came home with lots of bullet holes, had taken it to the enemy a lot of times and disposed the enemy of many of them. It's lethal force. When you hear that scream, at the same time, I lost an engine. At the same time, my flight controls jammed up. We were actually on a bank turning in to go engage. You heard that part. So we were not in a profile that we were going to maintain aircraft altitude. So as soon as that engine goes, that's my priority, I thought. And you heard that, you can hear it in the background. Rotor RPM low. Like, you hear him screaming, but if you paid attention, there was a rotor RPM high, rotor RPM low. We call it Bitchin' Betty in the background. And she said rotor RPM high, rotor RPM low. And what I needed to do in order to maintain flight was actually counterintuitively, this is your uppy-downy control in your left hand. It's collective. I had to slam the uppy-downy control into down. I needed this to go down. I needed to continue the rotor to spin. So I had to do that. But my flight controls were also jammed. And I didn't know that until I tried to do that. And all of this happened, you heard it, in a second, right? 2 seconds. It's taken me way longer to explain it than I had to do. But I had to drop that. And then I went to go to do the cyclic, which is the directional control in my other hand. And it wouldn't move. And in the Apache, and if it maintains where we're at, we're going to slice all the way. We're not aerodynamically efficient enough with a single engine. We're going to slice all the way to the ground, be the first ones seen to crash, the first ones to meet the Taliban, the first ones to, be on their own, YouTube. So that's real. And those things aren't going through my head. What's going through my head is I got to get the spinny thing spinny. That's what I have to keep doing, and I have to keep the forward airspeed. I know I got a co-pilot. I know what's going on with him. He told me all this other stuff I got to figure out, and I can deal with him, but I got to get this done or else there's nothing to deal with, right? If we can't get this done, his problem now just gets compounded, and my problem is the same as his. And so in a Apache helicopter, there's what's called a backup control system. It's bucks. You heard me say I'm in bucks. Maybe you heard it, maybe you didn't. The backup control system, you have to mechanically break the controls. They're designed to do it, but you have to put some force into it. and you have to brake it. And then it goes to a fly-by-wire, which if you're driving a car that doesn't have power steering, that's what it kind of becomes, is a helicopter that doesn't have power steering. So it flies sloppy. Well, it's going to fly sloppy, and it's also going to be power limited because it don't have an engine. So I snapped the cyclic over to break into those controls. And I remember thinking, Boeing is who makes an Apache. And I remember thinking in that minute, there's in the field manual, it says the Apache, when going into the backup control system, has a 1 second easy on. Means none of your control inputs will take effect for 1 second. I didn't know why that existed until that moment, because if it took immediate effect, we would have snap rolled and landed upside down. Helicopters do not land well that way. And so as I snapped, I remember thinking, please work as advertised, because not everything does. And as it snapped over and I brought it back to center, it did work as advertised. That 1 second easy on kept us from snap rolling. And then I had to pull it back to center so that we wouldn't. And then I had to continue to milk it to get the helicopter to fly, turn back to the house, which is what you kind of heard in the background, me coordinating with the other players on scene, talking to my co-pilot. But really in the background, I'm like, keep this thing in the air, keep this thing in the air, keep this thing in the air, you know? And at the same time, I cannot display that urgency to my co-pilot. He's got enough going on. I got to stay calm. And you can hear, I was consciously staying calm. I was calm in the background talking, but don't be confused. The duck and the feet was absolutely a thing. There was a lot going on there, and to keep the helicopter rolling. And we had to fly for 30 minutes. And for a minute there, I thought Baloo was going to put the whole 30 minutes on it. I was like, oh man, this is going to take a minute. But the whole rest of the time, we keep talking with Otto. That's my co-pilot. I keep talking with him. And I keep talking with him, and he starts to fade a little. I start giving him tasks. You need to calm my airspeed. You need to do this. His leg wasn't blown off, by the way. His leg, what happened is he took a PKM round right to the femur, shattered his femur, put a hole about that big in the bottom of his leg. And I'll tell you how I know how big it is in just a minute. But it shattered his femur, and his leg came up and wrapped around the cyclic, which is why the cyclic was locked up. And when I went to break that over, you heard him scream. That's how fast it was. You heard that scream? That's when I was breaking it over. So it was quick. But I didn't know that's why at the time. In fact, when I broke it over, on his other leg, there was a bruise, the exact shape of the cyclic, as it came smacking over and hit his other leg and came back to the center. So as we flew that 30 minutes, lots of time. It seemed like a year. And I'm like, within 4 or 5 minutes, I know they didn't hit the femoral artery, otherwise he would have already been done. We did figure out that where the hole was, and there was not an exit hole. There was only an entrance. It was from the bottom. Of course, it's from the bottom, which is interesting because when this was all happening, I was actually picturing it from the top, like what are they in the sky shooting at us. But as soon as we worked, I told him to continue to work his hands down his leg and get him calm to where he could do it. And he found his hole, and you just pull up on that thing as hard as you can and just hold it. I just hold that, and then we tasked him out, and we finally get to the 30-minute mark. I can't land this helicopter like a helicopter. With the amount of power margin that we have, the most inefficient way of flying is a hover. We don't have the power margin to hover. So I can't bring this thing to a hover. I got to roll it on like an airplane. So Apache does have wheels, and we do practice roll-on landings. That's not the big deal. We've never, and to this point, never been executed a single engine in bucks, in backup control with the sloppy controls, single engine landing. Never happened before. And I don't know if it's happened since, but it never happened up until that point. And so it's like this. It's doing this whole thing. And I'm like, okay, we're going to come down and we're just going to try to time that wobble. And every once in a while, I get a sporadic input because it's a wire system. It's not perfect. It's not. So it would just do its input, and the helicopter would do some weird thing. So I'm okay. Hopefully that doesn't do a weird thing right before we touch down, because that's going to get real interesting real quick. So as we came down, and he was even, he'd gotten toward a calmer place. He's dizzy, he's kind of slurring his words, kind of almost like he's drunk, but it's just because he's losing a lot of blood. And one of the things he said was on our final approach, he's like, "This better be the smoothest damn landing ever." and which I thought was awesome. I was like, this guy's got a hole in his leg and probably worse pain than I've ever experienced. And he's telling me how to fly the helicopter, make sure we land this thing smooth. And I was like, don't you worry, buddy, I got you. Right. I'm getting down. I don't know if I got him. I just told him I got him. And we landed it. We rolled it on. And the medics, unfortunately, were on the wrong side of the airstrip. So rolled it all the way to the stop. Emergency shutdown. Fire truck's coming, but they're not here yet. So I went ahead and popped up on my command canopy, popped open his canopy. And I went in and put my arms underneath him and I tried to forklift him out of there. But he's a big dude. I'm a big dude too. I pulled him out, sat him up on the forward avionics bay. There's a little step there. And at that time, the fire guys had run up and they were getting ready to pull him out onto they had a little stretcher for him. And as they pulled him out, his leg that had been shot passed right in front of me. Right in front of me, and there's a hole, like I said, about that big, with this hamstring pieces hanging and twitching. His muscles are still twitching. And obviously it caught my eye, and I'm staring at it, and Otto's looking at me, and I told you he just made a joke on a final approach path, and he saw that it was disturbing to me. He's already, had 30 minutes to come to terms with that giant hole in his leg. And he tried to crack another joke. He looked at me and he said, "Hey, you got me shot." Now, he meant it as a joke, but the weight of that statement hit me like a ton of bricks because he wasn't wrong, or he was. But in my head, he wasn't wrong. I got him shot because I immediately went to what we all do when something bad happens. Well, I could have done something different. I would have done this. I could have done that. I could have done this. And I immediately started to stack those things right here. I just put them on my shoulders. It's all I could have done it. I could, I would have, could. I should all over myself is what I did. That's not true. I did what I did when I did it because I did it. It wasn't true. Could I have done something different? No. I couldn't have because I didn't. You know how I know? Because I didn't. I did what I did. There's no way to change that. And I did the best I could do with the situation that I was in. But despite that, I put those there. And I didn't even realize I was putting them there until about 7 or 8 years later. Now, here's the deal about Otto. Otto wasn't in my company. We had a big mission come up, and they actually augmented our company with people that weren't from my company. I'd never flown with Otto before that day and never flew with them since. Love the guy. He was a great dude. But I didn't know him that well. So when he got on a plane and went to freaking Germany to get his legs sewn up and then went back to the United States through years in rehab. And then when I got back, I actually went to the Air Force and we separated ways. I didn't talk to Otto. I was just Facebook, some texts, some things like that. But I didn't know the guy that well. I mean, we were cemented together by an incident, but I don't know him that well. But about 7 years later, on the day that he got shot, he posted something on Facebook, tagged me in it. I'm not a big social media guy. I don't check it hardly at all. In fact, I go months without checking it. I actually checked it on that day. Wasn't even registering it was the day. But I saw that post and I saw the tag. And he wrote out a little thing that said, "On this day 7 years ago, this man saved my life. This is what happened." And he kind of went through it. And I'll be eternally grateful. And those bricks that I put up there that sat up there for freaking 7 years fell off. They were never supposed to be there to begin with. I put them there. And I had to give somebody else had to give me permission to take them off. That didn't have to happen. You can give yourself permission. But that was a big learning experience for me. How often are we carrying weight and we're shooting all over ourselves? You do what you do when you do it because you did it. The only thing you can affect is your next choice. And your next choice. The past already happened. There's nothing you can do to change it. It's not even real anymore. It's a memory. And guess what? We only remember 1% of our memories accurately. Actually, 1% we remember, and 1% of that 1% we remember accurately. So we're hanging ourselves out to dry with all this weight off of stuff that's probably not even accurate. And it doesn't matter. You did what you did because you did it. That's in the past. You cannot, that's running with cables. Cut the cables. The cables just hold you back. Cut them back. And in the future, sometimes we do the same thing where we worry about what we're going to do, what's going to happen, what could happen. That's running in mud. Cut the freaking cables and get out of the mud. The only thing that's real is the present. This is what's real. Right now, this moment is real. The future is just present stacked on top of each other. You want to change the future? Don't dream about it. I'm not saying don't have goals, don't have aspirations, don't set that stuff. But I'm saying you change now. You make decisions now. You be present now. You take action now. That's what the future is. And that's what these situations, and from the book and from my life, which I was blessed enough to experience these type of situations. And for a long time, I thought they were just for me. You know, I thought that I experienced what I called post-traumatic stress growth, because they were extreme experiences. And anytime you're on this side of the pendulum, it gives you permission to swing all the way to this side if you take it. If you take it. You hold your pendulum over here, it is going to pull you down. But the very fact you experienced what you experienced, and each of you have your own Afghanistans. Each of you have your own wars and battles, and there you're on this side of the pendulum. But the fact that you get to experience this means you get to experience its equal and opposite over here. Should you choose? Should you choose to? And I'll tell you, the key to it is be grateful for this. Frame this as a foundational piece, not a weight. Frame it as something that's under your feet, not on your shoulders. And you have all the power to do that. You have all the power to define your experiences. You have all the power to tell your story how you want to tell it. The problem is we tell ourselves stories that hold us back. I don't know if you want me to share any more than that, but that's basically the story. And I appreciate you guys listening.
That's a powerful story, brother. So I know you're uncomfortable talking about, awards and decorations and whatnot, but this second incident got you recognized for valor. And could you just talk about that for a moment?
Truth of the matter is, a lot of people fly in these war missions and have crazy experiences happen. And a lot of guys don't get medals or awards for. I had other missions like that similar to this that I didn't get any decorations for, but sometimes a mission has enough visibility on it where you get something like this, right? And you do have to have a good outcome. You have to have done some things to survive and to do what you could do. And so one part I didn't tell Baloo is they put me in for a Distinguished Flying Cross. And then I transferred over to the Air Force. And that actually, the paperwork actually kind of got lost because I wasn't in the Army. Nobody followed up. I just went to a different branch. I ended up flying combat search and rescue for the Air Force. Well, years later, like 7 or 8 years later, I don't even know, I was in Africa. I was in Africa, and somebody was watching that gun clip that you just saw. Somebody had it up on the screen. They go, "You guys got to check this out." They didn't know it's me. They were watching this gun tip. And our commander was in there. He's Lieutenant Colonel. He's sitting in there, and he's watching it, and he's like, "This was an Apache. He knew I flew Apaches." He's like, "Do you know this guy?" And I said, "Yeah, I do. I know that guy." I said, "I heard he's kind of a jackass." It's like, "Oh, really?" I was like, "You're standing next to him." And he goes, "What?" He goes, "That was you?" And I was like, "Yeah, that was me." And he goes, "No way." And I said, "Listen to the voice." And my voice is kind of quiet in that video. Like mine's the quietest voice in that whole thing. And we brought it, he goes, "That is you." And he goes, "What decoration did you get for that?" And I said, "Well, they put me in for a DFC, but I never pursued it or anything. And I don't know where it ended up." And he goes, "Oh," to his credit as a leader, he said, "Oh, hell no. That's an injustice." So he reached out to a general that he knew in the Army that was over that area of operation when I was there. And he asked him, his name was Fulbert at the time, Fulbert Colonel, now he's a general, calls General Thomas. He says, "You remember this situation?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I remember it. I gave him a coin." And he goes, "Did you put him in for decorations?" He's like, "Yeah, I think we put him in for decorations." It's like, "He never got it." He said, "Well, I don't know what that happened with that." And he goes, "Well, we need to fix it." And so these guys got together and had to rewrite a whole decoration. And because it was so long, it had to go to a senator and to present. It had to go to a senator to present. And senators like things to be big. right? They like some public relations. They like all that stuff. So they said, you have your choices. We can do it at a halftime show, a jazz game. They gave me some other crazy big choices like that too. And I was like, my son liked basketball. So I was like, well, I guess those are my choices. We're doing jazz game. So at the halftime show, the jazz game, we watched up the first half of the jazz game. My whole family's there. And I walked out there with the senator. And I started reading the Declaration. And it was overwhelming to me. It was very overwhelming to me because up until that point, we'd been cheering and everything. Utah Jazz were even winning. I mean, it was a decent loud, but when I walked out there, it was deafening. It was deafening, and you couldn't hear anything. It hit me. I was like, these people don't know me. They don't know. All they know is what they're hearing, and what they're reading. And because it was on the Jumbotron, the words were on the Jumbotron, and they were reading them. And I was like, these experiences, I knew they were there for me, but at that moment, I knew they were there for anybody. If shared the right way, these stories have power. If shared the right way, these stories can be foundational for someone other than me. So at that moment, I was like, I got to do something with these experiences. And I didn't know exactly what it was, but that's where the idea of writing a book came from eventually. And I was never... My English teachers would be like, there's no way Brian Slade wrote a book. But where there's a will, there's a way. And it actually turned out, from what I hear, decent.
What do you use for yourself, or for the men that you're helping, to help them cut the cables and get out of the mud?
Well, I do a 3-day training that is very intense. It's a container training. And we bring people in and we really drill down into, for every behavior you have, there's a belief system behind it. And that belief system came from a pain or a fear, right? And a lot of times self-help will get you down to the belief system and then say, hey, let's change your belief system. Well, belief system isn't going to change behavior because your pain's still there. Your pain point's still there. Your fear. So what we do, the only way out is through, is we drill all the way down into where that came from. Why are you telling yourself that story? Where does this belief system come from? Let's shift that. And help you. And here's the thing, and I had no ding on self-help. It has its purpose. So the self-help is a person having the answers for you. Transformation is realizing you have all the answers. And so realizing you have all the answers and knowing how to tap that's what we do.
I may have missed it, but you said that was their first mission you had flown with Otto, your co-pilot there. Was that significant to you? Like, was that different than what you'd normally do? Like, you usually have someone you're familiar with when you fly? So
what had happened is, just 2 days before that, we did the largest air assault in Afghanistan history. And it was a takedown of a Taliban stronghold. And because of that, we had a significant ground force clearing that city. And what was going to be required of us as Apache pilots is to be 24/7 overhead, right? And so I didn't have enough men or pilots or resources to do that. But our battalion, which had 3 different line companies, I was a company commander of 1 line company. We had 3 throughout Afghanistan. So the other companies, I knew of him from my battalion, right? And they gave me some of their guys. And a couple helicopters. And so we call it yo-yo ops. We're just yo-yoing back and forth. So it wasn't normal, especially at that far into our deployment, to fly with somebody that we hadn't flown with, but circumstances dictated different situations, right? And so at that point, at the beginning, my first story that I told you, I was one of the most novice guys, but whatever you want to call it, good luck, bad luck, they called me Magneto. I got into more fights than anybody. And so by the end of my deployment, I was one of the most experienced guys when it came to engaging the enemy. And so I put him with me because it was a risk mitigation factor. Like, hey, I'm going to put this guy in my cockpit because he doesn't know the area, he doesn't know this. Now, he got better over the year too because he was up fighting, but he was fighting an area that didn't have as much Taliban and didn't have as much kinetic ops. And so that was a risk mitigation. So to answer your question, it wasn't normal, but it was necessary for the mission at hand.
Let's give it up for Slade. Great job, brother. Great job.
Thank you for listening to the Sovereign Man Podcast. If you're ready to take charge of your life and become the man you've always wanted to be, we invite you to join the movement at sovereignman.ca.